You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, season 3, episode 65. The Cubs sweep the Southsiders. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow on the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, and Fly the W on Facebook, or email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Well, Crawly, we had our first no Cubs on a Sunday scheduled, keyword scheduled, since Sunday the 19th of 1932. And I got to tell you, I missed the Cubs today.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, I did get a whole lot done today without, watching pregame, postgame in the game. I got a lot done, but it makes no sense. It's so goofy. And, here's the thing I'm going to tell you, Cubs, Sox, South Side, nighttime, there's going to be a lot of tailgating, a lot of drinking. And you saw kind of some of that,
Saw some fighting on social media.
Mm-hmm. Right. Why they wouldn't have just done Saturday, Sunday during the day and just alleviate those problems is beyond me. But
yeah, or like give them, if they needed a 2-game series, take Friday night off and even play like late afternoon Saturday and then Sunday afternoon.
Right. You're asking for trouble if you're going to be saying, okay, we're going to do this on a Sunday or on a Saturday night. Everyone's partying in the parking lot. Everyone's tailgating, and you get what you get.
And I thought there was a time when there was something where they got away from that. Actually, they got away from the night games on the weekends at both parks.
Yeah, well, sometimes TV has something to do with it. Usually, with at least with the Cubs, usually they don't usually have Saturday night games. It's not very common, so that's usually if it's a TV flex, but.
Yeah, I mean, Fox did have the Saturday night game. All right, but we digress. So Friday was just an unbelievable baseball game, typical of the Cubs season.
Yeah, I wanted to see the Cubs win and look impressive against the Sox, and early on they did. They're facing the ace, right? Garrett Crochet, the White Sox ace, and the Cubs just hit him early and often. The very first batter, Ian Happ, hits a leadoff solo home run. Seiya Suzuki would single, and then Cody Bellinger hit a home run. Cubs are up 3-0. PCA hit a leadoff triple in the second, but Crochet was able to strike out Amaya. That was a bad call. Happened wisdom, so he struck out the side. But that call against Amaya was really, really bad. But if you're looking here at what Bellinger did with that home run, he is the first left-handed hitter to homer off Garrett Crochet, and that was the 183rd lefty that Crochet, or 193rd lefty Crochet has faced in his career. So no lefty has ever hit a home run off Crochet. Cody Bellinger does that. And with PCA's triple versus lefty, the first 23 starts, he's allowed 1 extra base hits in that game alone in 3 innings. 2 lefties got him for extra base hits. So
yeah, and that home run was kind of a jump out of your seat kind of thing. I mean, that was really great. I mean, just awesome.
Right. And then all of a sudden you get to the 3rd inning, right? And now Cody Bellinger is going to single. Isaac Paredes homer to make it 5-0. The next batter, Nico Horner, hits one, back-to-back jacks. Cubs are up 6-0. And after a Dansby Swanson single, Crochet's night was done. Tuki Toussaint came in and PCA hit a single to put runners at the corner. PCA would steal his 23rd consecutive base, and Miguel Amaya would ground out to score Dansby and put the Cubs up 7-0. So we were wondering, how are the Cubs going to do against Garrett Crochet, right? Just keep it close. That way, they'll pull him out of the game. Dustin, those were 7 runs charged to him on 9 hits, 5 Ks, 4 home runs. That was not expected.
No, not at all. Mm-mm.
Now, Jameson Taillon was pitching okay. He gave up a leadoff double in the second, stranded the runner, gave up a 1-out double in the third, stranded the runner again. But the 4th inning is where everything falls apart for Taillon. He gave up a leadoff homer to Andrew Vaughn. We warned you about him in the hot and not last time to make it a 7-1 game. Then he gives up singles to Gavin Sheets, Corey Lee, Dominic Fletcher, and that Fletcher single drives in Sheets to make it 7-2. A Brooks Baldwin groundout scored Lee. White Sox are down 7-3. And then Nicky Lopez has another single to make it 7-4 before Taillon would get out of the inning, but not before giving up 4 runs and throwing 34 pitches. That was brutal. When you sit there, you look and you're like, oh, we got a pretty good lead. This should be a laugher. Not so, right?
No, should have been a laugher, but not so much.
Right. Fourth inning, you could feel that momentum turn with Taillon giving up those 4 runs. Then in the top of the fifth, Nico Horner singles. He's caught stealing on a nice throw by Corey Lee. PCA would single with 1 out, reach second on a pass ball by Lee. Miguel Amaya would single. The ball reaches Andrew Benintendi before PCA even hits third. And Willie Harris, who had himself a not so great weekend, sends him. He sends him. PCA hasn't even hit third. He sends him. He's easily out at the plate. Taillon, I'm shocked, Dustin. I want your opinion on this. He comes back out in the bottom of the 5th. Now, he just gave up 4 runs. He just threw 34 pitches. Were you surprised to see Taillon come back out?
I was really surprised. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think the White Sox were happy to see that because leadoff home run, Andrew Benintendi to pull the Sox. Now it's a 7-5 game.
And he's been red hot too, by the way, Andrew Benintendi.
Yep, both the Andrew Vaughn and Andrew Benintendi. We said it beforehand. Those were the 2 hot guys we had on the list. Now, the Cubs would have a chance to get a run back in the bottom of the 5th. They had runners at second and third with 2 outs. Isak Paredes grounded out. So this whole momentum shift. And Dustin, like you said earlier, we've kind of seen these weird games where the Cubs score big and then all of a sudden it just gets quiet. The bats don't hit anything anymore. And all of a sudden the other team starts coming back. And that's what it felt like. Taillon did not come out in the 6th inning. His night was done. He gave up 5 runs on 9 hits, 0 walks, 4 Ks, and 2 home runs. The long ball continues to be an issue for Taillon. In 20 starts this season, he's given up 17 home runs. So you're talking about almost a home run a game. His line was nearly identical to his last start against the White Sox on June 5th when he gave up 5 runs on 10 hits and 5 innings pitched and gave up 1 home run. So Tyson Miller's first out of the pen, my favorite, my guy. He pitches a scoreless inning. Then Drew Smiley comes into the game in the 7th, and he gives up a solo home run to put the Sox within 1 run. So, Dustin, it was a 7-0 ball game, and now it's 7-6. And so I'm thinking, I think it was a game against San Diego. They had an 8-run lead and gave that up. And that's exactly what it felt like, what that was going on here. The beleaguered White Sox bullpen kept the Cubs off the scoreboard. After Crochet left the game in the 3rd, Touki Toussaint let an inherited runner score, but then the Cubs kept stranding runners. They finished the game 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position and left 8 men on base. Dustin, that takes us to the bottom of the 9th. Cubs are leading by 1 run, 7-6, and Hector Neris comes into the game. He gives up a leadoff single to Dominic Fletcher and another single to Brooks Baldwin. The White Sox had a leadoff runner on, Dustin, in 7 of the 9 innings in this game. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Neris got Nicky Lopez and Luis Robert to fly out. With 2 outs, Andrew Benintendi comes to the plate. He already homered twice in the game, and he was able to draw a walk. It was a good battle to load the bases, but the tying run is now at 3rd. The winning run is at 2nd for Andrew Vaughn, who already had a home run in the game. Neris gets him to fly out to PCA to end the game. Dustin, I could not go to sleep for another 2 hours. My heart was beating so fast.
Yeah, that was a wild one. Absolute wild one. You know, really enjoyable from a sports standpoint, but hard to watch as a Cubs fan.
Yeah, but here's something that's funny. The Cubs beat the White Sox on Friday at 7-6, the 3rd consecutive game this season. It's the 3rd time in franchise history that the Cubs beat a team 3 consecutive times by the same score in a season. 1887 over the Phillies and 1911 over the Phillies. So the first 3 games of the series is 7-6. That was wild.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy stat. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, did you see Hector Neris after the game with the white sunglasses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play a clip. Now, let me just kind of just say beforehand, I want to give hats off to Hector just because I know he had the Spanish translator. Freddie was next to him, but he chose to speak in English. But this is what Hector had to say after the game.
You know, every situation, like you have like a little second to you go back and be in the present and say, if I do before, I can do it now again. You know, I'm the best. I'm nobody better than me in this situation, and this you have to believe.
So I was sitting there like, you know, I understand what he's saying. You have to think you're the best and you can get this guy out, no problem. But boy, oh boy, that one was a scary one, Dustin. It's never easy.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster, no doubt about it. Enjoyed watching it. It was a fun watch. Had some White Sox fans around me that night, so giving a little crud back and forth. So it was fun, like it's supposed to be.
Yep, and game 2 was a game that kind of surprised me as well. you're looking at it. That was the one we thought was easy on paper, right?
Yeah, that was the easy one. Yep.
Justin Steele versus Chris Flexen, but it was a close game. Pitchers duel for the most part.
Yeah, pitchers flexing better than I thought he would be. And of course, the Cubs not able to capitalize early when he was making mistakes.
Right. And Justin was not dominant. There was a lot of traffic. Even though he bent, he didn't really break. He allowed 2 runners in the bottom of the first, but stranded them. In the second inning, Miguel Vargas hit one that Nico stopped as he was moving towards first. So Nico's kind of playing up the middle and he's shuffling and he just kind of bobbled the ball. That was an error. Nico went 70 straight games without an error. 66 of those games were at second base. So bummer, start a new streak tomorrow. But Corey Lee would single to put the runners at first and second, and Corey Julks ground out to put runners at the corners. Brooke Baldwin would hit one in between Ian Happ and PCA. Happ got his glove on it, but it jarred out of his glove when he hit the ground. So the Sox take a 1-0 lead. Still runners at first and second with 1 out. Steele got Lenyn Sosa to strike out and Luis Robert to line out to end the threat. Steele would give up a single in the third, 2 singles in the fourth. His only 1-2-3 inning, Dustin, was in the fifth. He gave up a leadoff walk in the sixth, but he would get out of that one. He would go 6 innings, give up 1 earned run, 6 hits, 2 walks. But those 8 strikeouts that he had helped him out of a couple jams. So again,
yeah, it seemed like he was getting squeezed a little bit. He was getting frustrated a lot by the home plate umpire. I want to go back to the Ian Happ miss catch. Did you think that I kind of felt like PCA could have got that ball?
I think the angle, like it was he was angling in. I think it was an easier play for Happ. It didn't happen. That's kind of it was kind of like he was not only was he coming in, but he was cutting across. So I thought he had the better angle on it.
All right.
With PCA, we're just at the point where we think he can make every play. So
right.
And just like the last time the Cubs faced Chris Flexen, they couldn't score any runs off this guy. The Cubs had 2 out in the first, a leadoff single in the second, the bases loaded in the third, and a Miguel Amaya double in the fourth, but couldn't score any of those runners like you were talking about, Dustin. The mistakes were made, but they just couldn't cash them in. Flexen pitched 4 shutout innings, gave up 3 hits, 4 walks, and only 1 strikeout. Now, Dustin, the Cubs finally get on the board in the 5th inning in one of the most bizarre plays you'll ever see. This is going to be replayed in those Cubs versus Sox highlight packages that they're always going to put together. Jared Schuster's in the game. He's got 2 outs and 2 strikes on Cody Bellinger. I love this. Against the lefty, Belly shortens up his swing and he hits a dribbler up the middle. I mean, we talked about Rizzo used to do that. I don't understand why they can't teach all those guys how to shorten up their swing with 2 strikes. Either way, Isaac Paredes is up. He hits a double to left field. Now, the ball just takes an unfortunate bounce. It ricochets right to left fielder Andrew Benintendi, who throws the relay to shortstop Brooks Baldwin. Now, Baldwin talked about it after the game. He said, okay, I peeked and I turned my head a little bit. I saw Bellinger about to turn into third, so I looked towards second. Well, Willie Harris gives him the send sign, and Belly's maybe 5 feet off the base. I'm in shock. I am literally in shock. But for some reason, Baldwin just keeps looking at second. Vargas, the third baseman, just has his hands on his head. He's not yelling or anything. It was really, really loud at the cell. So who knows what happens there, but the game is tied at 1. Again, I'm going to put this picture up for people that are watching on the 670 The Score YouTube station. This is a screenshot from the play. Right here, you can see that Baldwin has the ball and he's about maybe 10 feet, not even, from the infield. And Cody Bellinger is just turning on third. I mean, if he throws it home, Dustin, he's out by like 25 feet. He's in a rundown.
Mile. Yeah, by a mile. Yep.
He's in a rundown. I mean, look, at the end, it all turned out for the Cubs. But, man, that was 2 bad sends by Willie Harris. 2 of them that, the PCA one, he was out by 10 feet. And for PCA, that's pretty incredible. And, again, if Bellinger would have run home, it wouldn't even been close. So I don't know what he was thinking. The Cubs lucked out and the White Sox are just a bad team. But, hey, we'll take it, right?
Game's tied at 1. We'll take it. Yeah.
Stayed that way until the 8th. Chad Kuhl on the mound. Nico Horner draws a leadoff walk. Dansby singles to put runners at first and second. And then PCA hits a beautiful sac bunt to move the runners to second and third with 1 out. Miguel Amaya. We've talked so much, Dustin, about this bottom of the lineup recently in this great stretch for the Cubs, where you have Nico, Dansby, PCA, Miguel Amaya, all contributing. It's all these guys. And so Miguel Amaya singles, 2-run score, Cubs lead 3-1. Phenomenal. Bottom of the 8th, Jorge Lopez on the mound, 1 out. Gavin Sheets singles, and Miguel Vargas walked. Tying run is on first, but Lopez strikes out the Coreys, Corey Lee and Corey Jukes, the threat. Now, I was curious, Dustin, who was going to come out of the bullpen, because the night before, Hector Neris threw 20 pitches, and they were high stretch, bases loaded, right? Like, I'm like, they're not going to call out Neris again. And sure enough, here comes Hector, Mr. The sunglasses. First batter he faces, Brooke Baldwin, drills one. First baseman Michael Bush continues to impress with his defense, makes a phenomenal stop. Good throw to Neris, but Neris drops the ball. Now, Baldwin is called safe, but the replay shows, right? Neris dropped it, but he caught it on the rebound, picked it up like dribbling a basketball, and had his foot on the bag, but there's no challenge from Craig Counsell.
Yeah, I don't understand. As much as they challenge or look at stuff, I don't know why.
But Dustin, let me ask you this. It is the 9th inning.
Yeah, what are you waiting for, right? What are you waiting for?
Two-run game. Are you good? Why are you keeping it in your pocket?
Right. I agree. I mean, if things would have went sideways, that would have been something we'd be talking about big time right now.
And I don't even understand why even look at the film in the 9th inning if you have a challenge. You don't even have to look in it. Just make the challenge sign. Who cares? Because you don't even want to maybe be too late on that. You sit there, you challenge it, and see what happens. Worst comes to worst, you lose your challenge in the 9th. After the 9th inning, you can ask the umpires to look at a call. So it doesn't matter. So either way, Neris, it does not haunt the Cubs. Neris gets Lenin Sosa to fly out, struck out Luis Robert and Andrew Benintendi to close it out. Dustin, would you believe me if I told you today on the 11th of August that PCA has a higher batting average than Luis Robert?
No. How about, what was he, 0 for 10 with 6 Ks?
I mean, it was, I know how you and I think, and I know, like, when I'm watching a game, I'm like, oh, I know what Dustin's thinking, and we're both probably like, don't pitch to Robert. Yeah. He was awful. He was lost.
Awful, just awful. Yeah, I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, and the new manager's trying to say, oh well, his name's been in trade rumors that affects him. Blah 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 blah. Give me a break.
Yeah, the Cubs scored 3 runs on 9 hits, but were 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position and left 12 men on base. We talked in the last episode how if you hit home runs, you can kind of cover that up like they did in game 1 when you hit 4 home runs. But when you get to a 3-1 game, those runners in scoring position come back to haunt you. Yes. Dustin, congrats to the Swanson family. Mallory scored the only goal in the Olympic finals on Saturday in women's soccer to secure the gold medal for the USA. And Dansby had a 6th inning single, which was his 1,000th major league hit.
Yeah, pretty cool weekend for that family, no doubt. Hopefully they're maybe she's going to fly to Cleveland. Who knows? Meet up
now, Dustin, Nico was talking after the game, and this is what he said when asked if he's looking at the standings, which we're going to do in segment 3. And this is what Nico had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I know where we are for sure. I think, it does feel like it is still within our grasp as far as controlling what we can. It doesn't feel like, we're watching the scoreboard making sure other teams are losing or anything like that. The first thing you can do is, control your end of it. And, I think we've done a nice job of that lately. Obviously, we put ourselves in the hole with how we played for an extended stretch. And but I do think you're seeing a very complete version of us right now as far as starting pitching, bullpen, defense, and a full lineup. So I think we're in a good spot.
Would you agree with that statement? I mean, first off, I like the fact that he was honest. Yeah, I'm looking at the standings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sometimes those guys, oh no, I'm not. Justin Steele said, I don't really look at standings.
I love the honesty. Give
me the honesty. But do you feel like right now this is the best version of the Cubs that you've seen in all facets of the game?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I agree with that.
I would agree 100%. But here's the thing, is that Nico made an error and that almost haunted him. Luckily it didn't. Willie Harris almost with a couple bad sends. This is against a really bad White Sox team. And we talked about it in the Cardinals series, how when they made a mistake that the PCA Nico dropped fly ball, that you can't do that anymore. And I feel that this is the best version of the team that we've seen, but things are not cleaned up here anymore. Like right now, they're not as cleaned up as they need to be. You can't have a guy getting thrown out at home in 2 straight games, which is what should have happened. You can't have, Nico, 70 games. I'll give him a break, but it's just got to be cleaner. It's got to get better to pull this off. A lot of teams still to leapfrog.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, episode 65 of season 3. Cubs sweep the Southsiders. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Leave us one of those 5-star reviews, and you can email us at flythew670@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch us, that's right, on the 670 The Score YouTube page. See the stats and videos we'd like to share with you. And in this segment, Crawly's talking to WGN Sports' Josh Frydman about the Cubs Crosstown Classic and the crazy atmosphere over at the Rate.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, you see him on WGN Sports. We have Josh Frydman on a non-All-Star edition. Josh, how you doing?
Yeah, great to talk to you, Crawly. I kind of feel like I should be in an airport somewhere reporting from a city that is hosting the All-Star game, but always great to talk to you in the middle of the season when it's not the Midsummer Classic.
Well, I got to tell you, not the Midsummer Classic, but the Crosstown Classic. And, it's one of those series that it really doesn't matter what the records are. Throw it out. There's just always weird, wacky stuff. And you had a chance to go into the locker rooms. And it's weird because it feels like there's 2 completely different locker rooms going on. The Cubs really, after tonight, they're 3 games back in the wild card. And the White Sox are trying to avoid history. I mean, what was it like going into those 2 different locker rooms during the series?
Yeah, well, even just during the season, Crawly, covering the White Sox, we'll just start there. It has been it's been a season unlike anything I've ever covered in baseball. Just the fact that we thought the White Sox would be bad, and yet no one thought they would be this bad and flirting with the 1962 Mets as the worst team in the modern era of baseball. And to be honest, I don't think they're going to get to 40 wins. I don't see a path where they can get 13 more wins with the roster that they have, sadly. They're fighting, and that's, a credit to, I think, the clubhouse that they do have. I don't think we've seen guys just lay down and stop playing. They make miscues, they make mistakes, because that's just the team they have right now. They don't have a whole lot of talent left on that roster. They needed to make the change on Thursday by firing Pedro Grifol, who just felt like he was in over his head, to be honest. Grady Sizemore is a nice little reminder of the early 2000s MVP baseball days when, Sizemore was an all-star beating up on the White Sox with Cleveland. Still looks like he can play, by the way. He, went past us in the clubhouse on Saturday, and you kind of look, do a double take. You're like, is that a player or is that Grady Sizemore, the manager? And I remember seeing him at spring training also thinking the same thing. Like, dude is still in shape, tanned, looking good. Feel like he can definitely play, and obviously lost some years to injuries in his playing career. But that obviously maybe provided a little bit of a spark to come back from down 7-0 on Friday in Game 1. A little too much drama for Cubs fans for sure. And then Saturday, also some more drama, needing some hits late and squeaking by a White Sox team where you feel like you should win comfortably. Bottom line, though, they win 4 games against the White Sox in the 4-game season series. You needed to do that against the worst team in baseball. And in the Cubs clubhouse, I asked Craig Counsell this post-game Saturday. I was like, look, you're a game under 500 now. How big of just a threshold, a barometer is that to get back? And he's like, yeah, we've clawed our way back, but we dug ourselves this hole. There is no room for error, but there is time. And he's right in a way. It's running out of time quickly, right? You look up and there's 40 plus games left, not much more than that, as you're in this kind of clustered NL wildcard race. But as you mentioned, now 3 games back of the final wild card. No one seems to want to take a hold of that. And the Cubs not playing on Sunday benefited from every team ahead of them losing, which was kind of crazy. Thank you, the Rockies, for scoring 7 runs in the 8th against the Braves. The Giants lose to Detroit. The Pirates lose. So all those things helping. The Cardinals were idle. But, looking at the schedule coming up, Crawly, it's at Cleveland, but then 18 games after that against below 500 teams. So if they're going to make a run, now is the time.
Now, how shocked were you? Because, I mean, the buzz, Pedro Grifol was going to be fired. There was no doubt about that. But to also fire Charlie Montoya, the bench coach, to me was just kind of shocking, because you mentioned Grady Sizemore. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of experience. I don't know, maybe this is just me watching on TV. It kind of looked like very overwhelmed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about no experience. Last year, he was a $15 an hour intern for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He literally has no experience at the major league level prior to this season. and yet he's a guy that the guys respect. And he's a former player who has a pretty nice resume, multiple-time Gold Glove winner, All-Star, and young enough where even the young guys, I talked to Brooks Baldwin, who's going to be 24 this week, and I asked him, do you remember watching Grady? And I was thinking back, well, you were probably like 5 years old when he made his debut, but he does remember it. It's a name that sticks with baseball fans of our generation and even a little younger. And so I think when you have Pedro Grifol come in, who never made it to the major leagues, and not to say that's a precursor to be a manager, but his resume, it wasn't the same as a guy like Grady, who they've already said he's just in an interim for this season. They're not considering him for the full-time role, which I think is smart because you need to go outside the organization. You need to have a vast pool of candidates that you can pick from that have hopefully prior major league experience. And they messed up a couple of these hires recently. You take Tony La Russa instead of picking AJ Hinch or some other guys, Bruce Bochy, for example, and instead you go with Tony, and then you go with Pedro Grifol. And those hires have not worked out. And so I think they're going to hopefully look long and hard at a lot of candidates in the offseason. But right now they needed someone just to get them through the end of this disastrous year. And Grady's the guy. And so, yeah, I think just talking to players, they just kind of respect his resume. They've gotten to know him as a major league coach throughout the year. He was there in spring training. So I think that's kind of the current plan for the White Sox, but they're going to look outside the organization when the season's over.
Now, you mentioned Brooks Baldwin. You're at the game. You're in the press box. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Willie Harris going, what are you know, that was just one of the most insane things I've probably. Paredes hits it to left. It bounces almost perfectly to Benintendi, who throws it. I mean, what were you guys talking about in the press box, and what was the questions like there for Brooks after that play? That was just the most bizarre thing.
So the press box at Guaranteed Rate is obviously way up high, like it is at Wrigley. It's down the right field line, though. So we're actually looking, instead of looking directly down, we're looking across the field at the third base, left field line, and then the third base bag. And you can kind of have a pretty good angle of watching everything unfold. And yeah, I'm watching Willie Harris, and all of a sudden I'm seeing him waving Bellinger, and I'm looking at the ball. I'm like, shortstop's basically already got the ball when he's being waved home. And that's exactly what happens. Baldwin comes up with a cutoff, and Bellinger maybe was 10 feet off of third base. I mean, I joked on Twitter that Baldwin could have lobbed the ball home, and he still would have had Bellinger by plenty. And yet, it was a rookie mistake. Bottom line, he thought actually, which is kind of funny, that there was no way Willie Harris would actually send him, that he didn't even bother to look. You can't just presume, especially with 2 outs, that's going to be the case. It was an egregious send in a way by Willie, but with 2 outs, you test it. Maybe he knew, hey, young guy at short, maybe we'll get a break, and you didn't even get a throw there. So in a way, you credit the aggression there, but all Brooks Baldwin has to do is look up. And Grady Sizemore after the game said, look, he thought he's maybe going to have a play at second base because the ball came in quickly and Paredes isn't the fastest runner. So he's thinking first and third. And he probably didn't even hear us yelling 4-4-4, home, 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 because it's so loud at the Crosstown. And really, there weren't a lot of, at that point, that was the first Cubs run. So the Cubs fans there were getting loud. And so you can't blame him for maybe not hearing, but you got to look up. You got to obviously check on the lead runner to make sure he's not going. And even if he did that and did a double take and went back to second, he could have done be like, oh, he's actually going home and throw it and still gotten Bellinger because he had that much time. So it was a break by the Cubs, and that's exactly what's happening with the White Sox team, right? The bad teams make these mistakes and they dig themselves in these holes when you had some positive momentum coming off the comeback on Friday, then didn't finish it. You're leading early, you're battling Justin Steele, and then all of a sudden game's tied and your offense stinks. You're not going to be able to score any more runs, and the Cubs get a clutch hit in the 8th by Amaya to end up winning the game.
Now, we get to the 9th inning of that game, and before the inning even starts, it's getting bizarre. And you actually had an amazing video on Twitter, X, Josh_Frydman, of these guys that jump from the stands. When did you know that was happening? And tell us a little bit about what these guys were doing.
Yeah, nothing like the Crosstown without some extracurricular shenanigans by the fans, right? So, yeah, basically this was right before the bottom of the 9th, I believe, and all of a sudden you start hearing, I was actually looking at like the game notes, I was checking on something, and all of a sudden you hear the fans start to cheer, and so you look up and there's a guy running on the field right by us and down the right field line. And he's kind of making some nifty moves. He's like stopping, starting, dodging the security. You're like, oh, that's kind of fun. He's definitely going to get arrested, but it's kind of fun. And he, eventually kind of gives himself up and gets tackled and whatever. And my buddy Eugene McIntosh from the Bigs is sitting next to me. He's like, dude, there's another guy on the field. And he's not moving, because no one was watching that, because obviously you're watching the guy who was running around. But in left center, this was happening in right field. In left center, there's a guy that's just, you can see him down on the ground in left center field on the warning track. And obviously he's in pain. You can just tell he's not moving. And security jogs over there, but they're not going to like tackle a guy who's not moving. And they end up tending to him for a good 5 minutes, and then have to get the medical cart to come out and escort him off the field. I've never seen that in my life. A fan having to get escorted from jumping onto the field and then get escorted out in a cart. And I guess what happened was, when he jumped onto the field, he landed, and I'm pretty sure he blew his knee out. We weren't sure if it was the ankle, leg, knee, but some of the things we had heard, it was an ACL and knee injury type. And then this was even crazier. We're in the clubhouse, right outside the clubhouse, I should say, for post game, and it's in like the underground bottom level of Guaranteed Rate. And all of a sudden, there's this guy being wheeled in a wheelchair by security, and it's that guy, and he's got a leg brace, knee brace, something on, clearly like on his lower leg that was from the fall. And I tried to ask him, I was like, what did you do? What happened? And all he goes is TMZ, baby. He was clearly inebriated, but he's probably going to have a story for a long time about the night he went to probably the hospital and then to jail for trespassing. So, yeah, just the craziness that sometimes you get from these Cubs Sox games.
And then, I wasn't exactly sure what happened. They didn't show it on TV, and just speculation, but then something happened with PCA in the bottom of the ninth as well. What exactly happened there?
Yeah, it was also something weird, because we couldn't tell right away what it was. Clearly there was something in center field that was bothering PCA, and he was, kind of pointing to the crowd, and the game had stopped again. So I actually asked PCA in the clubhouse afterwards, as he was getting ready to leave. I was just like, hey, what was that? What happened in center field? And he's like, yeah, I think it was just like an empty can of basically nicotine or chewing tobacco that was thrown at him. So it wasn't a beer bottle or a beer can. Some people were speculating that. He said it was a can of tobacco, and not sure if it actually hit him or it came close, but he was obviously not happy that fans were throwing something at him.
Yeah, that's it's dangerous, and you can hurt, I don't know, just
yeah. I mean, look, if you're a fan of the game, there should be two simple rules. One, don't throw anything at a player, and two, don't jump on the field and make yourself look like an idiot. And probably three, don't get hurt, right? It's just like, just enjoy the game. We get it. It's a rivalry. Things, you're probably having a few drinks, but like, don't act like a moron.
Now, I was sitting there, and I got to tell you, I was, when they called on Hector Neris for a second night, because that first night he threw 20 pitches. They were high stress, and I was kind of wondering, okay, is Craig going to go again to Hector Neris? And he did. And, he was funny in the post game the other day. He wore sunglasses. I don't think he wore them on Saturday again, but he just has a confidence to him that kind of, regardless of what happens, somehow he's able to keep that blood pressure down. And I think it's just the years of experience he's had in late inning roles.
Yeah. Counsell, it's his dude. He has praised Neris's experience throughout the summer. So he's kind of emerged, obviously, as that guy once Adbert struggled early and then went down to injury. I was thinking, just kind of as I'd have to go back and check the game logs, but has he had a clean inning? Like literally a 1, 2, 3 inning? I mean, maybe 1 or 2 this summer, but I feel like it has been always action on the bases when Neris is in, whether it's a 1-run lead or a 3-run lead. You just never feel good about it. And yet most of the time he does get himself out of damage. So I don't know if it's just like kind of the way he's wired, where, he's a little loose early, and then all of a sudden when it happens to be like no room for error, he buckles down and gets it done. Because for the most part, he's been a pretty solid closer, and a guy that, makes Cubs fans nervous, a little sweaty, a little, back in the day, Carlos Marmol vibes, in terms of just like, all right, when he was not at his best, you were like, where's this going to go? This inning could have 4 walks. We could have, strike out the side. You never really know what's going to happen. But to your point, the experience level of a guy who's been in the majors for over 10 years, has some closing experience, has high leverage experience on a team that has a pretty young bullpen for some other guys. So yeah, it's never easy with a nervous Neris or, whatever nickname he gets bestowed on him. But for the most part, he has come up when the Cubs have needed him. But yeah, back-to-back days to lock it down. Counsell definitely trusts the guy.
Now, I got to tell you, if you would have told me on August 11th that PCA would have a better average than Luis Robert, I would think you were crazy, but that's where we are. You get to spend a lot of time down at Guaranteed Rate and Wrigley, but like, what do you see is going on with Luis Robert? I mean, that wasn't the same guy that I've seen in the past.
No, and watching his at-bats yesterday, I mean, he looks lost at the plate, under 200 now average. And honestly, like, you would think in a big moment, what White Sox player do you want to play if you're a Sox fan? It's Luis Robert. And then you're like, you watch him take these at-bats, and you're like, actually, he's probably the guy I want nowhere close to the batter's box at this point, because I don't know if just like a timing mechanism, it's just off, or I don't know if he's kind of checked out a little bit. That's kind of more speculation, but it's got to be tough to kind of go in and try to grind for a team that is so far out of it. But you would think, somewhat personal pride, right? And just, going out and doing your job. And for the most part, I think the White Sox players are doing that. But for Luis, last year, getting to cover him at the All-Star game, getting to cover his incredible season for, again, a losing team, but he performed, obviously, and stayed healthy was the big thing. This year, he's had, a little bit of injury, but for the most part, been out there. And it just looks like a guy who, his timing is way off, struggling at the plate to even make like hard contact, not just like the power being zapped, but a guy who just doesn't feel like he has his swing anywhere close to what it has been over the last couple of years. And you wonder now, because he was a name that came up during the trade deadline. I never felt like the Sox would actually trade him this year because his value is so low. But is it going to be any higher this offseason? Does a team still want to take a chance on the tools and a young player who is under a contract for, I think, 2 or 3, maybe 3 more years at a very reasonable price for his all-star caliber potential? Do you feel like just a change of scenery, getting him out of the South Side and getting him onto a new team maybe is what you need? I'm not sure, but yeah, it's crazy how far he has fallen this season. Kind of emblematic of just where the White Sox are when your best player, your best hitter, is struggling as badly as he is.
Well, I got to tell you, Josh, the Crosstown Classic never disappoints. There's always some craziness, and I got a feeling that Brooks Baldwin play is going to be on those little montages, along with the AJ Pierzynski punch and all sorts of, the Michael Barrett, AJ Pierzynski scrap, and all the Michael Jordan stuff. I just think it's going to be looped into that because that's as memorable play as you'll ever see. And why don't you tell our listeners where they can follow your work, both on TV and on the socials?
And AJ, by the way, was doing the game on Saturday as well.
He was.
National for Fox. There you go. You can follow me on social at Josh_Frydman is the Twitter X handle. Josh Frydman on Instagram as well. And then GN Sports TV is our social media handle for the show. 7 nights a week, 10:30, right after the news. Join us, myself, Jared Payton, Caitlin Sharkey, Chris Bowden. Got a great team producing stuff for you pretty much every day. And I actually had a cool, if you're a Sox fan or even not, you remember the name Chris Honnell, potentially. He was local prospect from Providence Catholic, drafted in the first round of 2001's draft. Mark Pryor, of course, in that draft. Joe Mauer. And Honnell went 16th overall to the White Sox. Never quite made it to the majors, but pitched in the minors, independent ball for 10 years. He's 41 right now. He's back pitching in a summer league team. And I did a story on him and ran on Friday nights on our website, WGN-TV.com. Just kind of a cool comeback. And, he's throwing high 80s again after not picking up a ball in 10 years. Kind of crazy. And he's going to he was pitching in relief this summer, maybe thinking about stretching out to being a starter next year and kind of just seeing where it goes. He's not betting on maybe getting picked up by a professional team and getting into affiliated ball again. But can you imagine how crazy that would be? That would be like the Rookie ×7, with that movie with Dennis Quaid back in the day. So that's a story that is on WGN's website right now that aired. So stuff like that, which we get cool features, fun stuff besides the everyday coverage, and fully in Bears season as well. So we got a lot of good Bears content as well. But I always appreciate you having me on to talk some baseball.
100%. And I'm going to check out that story, Josh. I appreciate you jumping on, and we'll talk again in the future.
All right, Crawly. Sounds good.
This is season 3, episode 65. Cubs sweep the Southsiders. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. We won't mind. And you can email us at flythew670gmail.com. And you can watch us, that's right, on the Score YouTube page, the 670 The Score YouTube page. Crawly, a few minutes ago, we talked standings. Let's take a little deeper dive.
Yeah, we got something exciting here, Dustin. The Cubs are no longer in last place. They're also no longer in second to last place. The Cubs are in third place now.
Third place Cubs.
So Milwaukee in first, 67-49. St. Louis, eight games behind them. The Cubs, 9.5 back. Pittsburgh now 11 games back. They're struggling. And then Cincinnati in last place with 6.5 games back. But if you're looking at the wild card, San Diego, the Diamondbacks, and the Braves would be the wild card team if the season ended today. But the Braves and the Mets are fighting back and forth. The Mets are half a game out. But Chicago Cubs are only 3.5 games out of that final wild card. Now, again, you're going to have to jump the Cardinals, the Giants, and the Mets or Braves, whoever's there. But there's still a month and a half of baseball to be played.
Still plenty of baseball, still in the conversation. Gives us just another reason other than our fandom to watch. So yeah, I'm not ticked off that they're still in the mix. No way.
Yeah, we got some injury news, and good news is Jordan Wicks is back. He began a rehab assignment in Iowa. He gave up 6 runs in an inning and 2/3, but you don't worry about runs when you make that first rehab start. You just want to make sure that you feel better when you in 2 or 3 days. It's a question of how you bounce back after not playing in a game for so long. On the bad news, Cade Horton suffered a setback while rehabbing from his right lat strain. Chances are his season is done. So, when Cade is healthy, he's really exciting to watch. We just need him to stay healthy, and that's going to be something you watch for next season.
Right. A lot of talk that he was going to make that debut up here, right? And we're finally going to see that. People were getting excited, but that is going to have to wait. And now we have to wait until tomorrow, as we record this on Sunday, for the Cubs to take on the Guardians out in Cleveland.
Yeah, I heard Pat and Ron talking about it on Saturday, where they were saying, every time you just think Cubs versus Cleveland, it's just one of those things that, you'll never forget 2016. And especially that it's going to be played in Cleveland where the Cubs won it all. It's just puts a smile on your face. Last season, the Guardians struggled, finishing third in the AL Central with a record of 76-86. The last season managed by Terry Francona. Cleveland did take 2 out of 3 from the Cubs at Wrigley in late June and early July. The Cubs took game 1 10-1 behind a strong outing by Justin Steele and home runs by Nick Madrigal and Christopher Morel. Cleveland took game 2 6-0 as Marcus Stroman struggled, gave up 5 runs, and the Cubs lost the rubber match 8-6. They were down 6-0 early, and they tried to come back, but they fell a little short. In the offseason, the Guardians really didn't do much after finishing in third place. Their payroll is exactly $1 million less than it was in 2023. They let pitchers Cal Quantrill and Reynaldo Lopez walk in free agency, also outfielder Cole Calhoun. But they added starter Ben Lively, relief pitcher Scott Barlow, and outfielder Estevan Florial, and catcher Austin Hedges. Stephen Vogt took over the managing duties from Terry Francona. So after finishing 10 games below 500 in 2023 and looking like they added less, you think they'd be bad in 2024, right?
Well, yeah, you would think, right. Mm-hmm.
But the Guardians are in first place in the AL Central with a record of 68-49, close to 19 games over 500. And that being said, Cleveland has cooled off a bit after roaring out of the gate. They finished April with a record of 19-10, and in May they went 19-9. But in June they were 14-11. In July, 13-12. They're 3-7 in August, Dustin. So they're starting to kind of hit a rough patch. They just finished up a few huge 4-game series versus the second place Twins. They're winning right now as we're recording this. But if it holds up, they would have gone 2-2 against the Twins this weekend. So I think we're catching them, Dustin, right now at the right time.
Let's hope. Tail of the tape.
So when we take a look here, Cubs versus Guardians, the Guardians have the advantage in batting average. Theirs is 240, which is 18th in baseball. The Cubs 236, 23rd. Slug, the Guardians have the advantage there, 398, 15th in baseball. The Cubs are 20th at 385. This is the difference, though. If you look at these two teams offensively, their batting average and slug is similar, but runners in scoring position, Cleveland is hitting 460, which is 6th in all of baseball, while the Cubs are hitting 382, which is 24th in all of baseball. That's the difference there, Starting pitching ERA, the Cubs have the advantage. They are third now in all of baseball with a 3.73 ERA by their starters. But Cleveland starters are really good too, 3.77. That's sixth in all of baseball, but they're having some injury issues. Reliever ERA, the Cubs better get to the starters because Cleveland's 2.67 bullpen ERA is first in all of baseball. But look at the Cubs, 3.62 reliever ERA. They're now up to seventh in all of baseball, Dustin.
Yeah, it's amazing that they've had that kind of turnaround. That is one of the better stories.
Yep, and when you talk about defense, that's Cleveland's bread and butter. They are first in baseball on defensive runs saved, 79, while the Cubs are 16th with 8 defensive runs saved. So when you're looking at these two teams, the reason Cleveland is doing so well, nearly 20 games over 500, and the Cubs are just a game under 500, is that the runners in scoring position and the bullpen and defense, the pitching and defense for Cleveland, that's what makes them such a good team. So when we get into the pitching probables for
pitching probables, yeah, I like this. I like how it starts off. That's for sure.
Yep. Game 1, you got Shota Imanaga versus Ben Lively. All of these, Dustin, are going to be 540 starts. So
those are nice starts. Those are nice starts for me.
Yeah, you get to watch them all. Shota is 9-2 with the 3.06 ERA in 21 games started with 128 strikeouts and 123 in a third innings. 3 starts ago against the Royals, he gave up 3 runs in 5 2/3 inning. On August 1st, he gave up 4 runs in 6 2/3 innings against the Cardinals. And his last start against the Twins, he gave up 2 runs in 7 innings. Shota has not faced the Guardians or any of their hitters yet. Cleveland's going to counter with Ben Lively. He has a record of 10-7 with an ERA of 3.59 and 20 games started, with 92 strikeouts and 110 1/3 innings pitched. He's 2-1 in his last 3 starts, giving up 1 run in 6 innings versus the Phillies, 2 runs in 6 innings against the Orioles, but took the loss against a red-hot Diamondback team, giving up 4 runs in 5 innings. Lively is 0-2 lifetime against the Cubs with a whopping 19 ERA in 2 games started. Most of the Cubs only have 3 at-bats against Lively, but Dansby's 3 for 7, and Cody Bellinger is 3 for 3 against Ben. Lively features a 4-seam fastball, sinker, and sweeper.
Game number 2, Javier Assad taking the ball.
Yep, Javier Assad versus lefty Matt Boyd. Javier is 5-3 with the 3.24 ERA in 21 games started with 90 strikeouts in 102 2/3 innings pitched. Since Assad has come off the IL on July 13th, he's only thrown more than 4 innings once in his last 5 starts. Against the Cardinals on August 2nd, he went 4 innings and gave up 1 run. On August 8th against the Twins, he went 4 innings and gave up 2 runs. I mean, he's not giving up tons of runs, but that's really going to be taxing on the bullpen if you got to cover 5 innings every time out. Assad has only faced the Guardians once. He pitched 3 innings of relief and didn't give up any runs. No one on the Guardians has more than 2 at-bats against Assad. Now, Tuesday night game, Dustin, is still TBD on the Guardians side, but it is expected that Matthew Boyd, a 33-year-old left-hander, will make his Cleveland Guardian debut. We know Boyd. He's played 9 seasons, mostly with the Detroit Tigers. He was with the Tigers last season when he underwent Tommy John surgery. He signed with the Guardians this season right before the trade deadline on June 29th. He's played in 5 rehab games across 3 different minor league levels, but he's been pitching really well in the minors, so this is going to be his first start in a Cleveland uniform. Boyd is 0-1 lifetime against the Cubs with a 6.75 ERA in 2 games. One of them is start. None of the Cubs have more than 3 at-bats against Boyd, who features a 4-seam fastball, a slider, and a changeup.
Game number 3, Jameson Taillon.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, Dustin. They skipped Kyle Hendricks' start. I don't know if you noticed that. So I
thought it was a little quick for Taillon to be back up.
Yeah, Taillon's there for a game. So they moved everybody up because they've had the 2 games off, the 2 days off. And so, they had Thursday off and they had Sunday off. So it's going to, they're just, keeping everybody on the same rest and skipping Kyle. Taillon is 8-6 at the 3.50 ERA in 20 games started with 90 strikeouts and 115 2/3 innings pitched. J-Mo struggled in 2 of his last 3 starts. On July 29th, he gave up 6 runs in 4 1/3 innings against the Reds. He bounced back on August 3rd against the Cardinals, giving up only 1 run in 6 innings. And in his last start against the White Sox, he gave up 5 runs in 5 innings. As we talked about in segment 1, the home run ball is hurting J-Mo. He is 1-2 lifetime against Cleveland in 4 starts with a 4.71 ERA. Jose Ramirez is 2 for 11. Josh Naylor is 2 for 8. And Andres Jimenez is 3 for 6 against J-Mo. Just like Boyd, Alex Cobb made his debut for the Guardians on Friday. He has not played all season. He was recovering from hip surgery. He was traded by the Giants to Cleveland right before the trade deadline. He was activated to pitch in the second half of the doubleheader against the Twins, pitching 4 2/3 innings, giving up 4 runs on 9 hits. Cobb is 0-1 lifetime against the Cubs with a 1.50 ERA in 2 games started. Most of the Cubs don't have more than 3 at-bats against Cobb. Dansby Swanson is 1 for 6, and Cody Bellinger 0 for 5 against Cobb, who features a split finger, sinker, and curveball.
All right, Crawly. Who's hot? Who's not?
All righty. For the Cubs, when you're taking a look at the Cubs, you got a couple guys that are hot. Dansby Swanson, 8 for 19, including his 1,000th hit with 2 RBIs, slashing 421, 421, 526. Cody Bellinger, 6 for his last 15 with the home run, 2 RBIs, slashing 400, 500, 600. And PCA, 6 for his last 18 with an RBI, slashing 333, 333, 500. When we look at the not, take a look at Seiya Suzuki, brutal series against the White Sox. He's 2 for his last 17, slashing 118, 167, and 118. Miguel Amaya, 3 for 13, so he's starting to cool off a little bit. 231, 286, 308.
So for the Guardians, who do Cub fans have to be careful about?
You want to look out for second baseman Andres Jimenez. He's 8 for his last 22 with 2 RBIs, slashing 364, 391, 409. And you never can. Jose Ramirez is always on this list, right? 7 for
Always. The guy's always on the list, right?
He's a born hitter. He's 7 for 23 with a home run, 3 RBIs, slashing 304, 360, 478. On the not, they're having some trouble with their shortstop, Daniel Schneiderman, who's 1 for his last 10. He's slashing 100, 231, 100. And Lane Thomas, their right fielder, is 2 for his last 22, slashing .091, .130, .091. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out here, Dustin.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, I think that means it's time for a prediction. I'll go first. I'm going to say 2 out of 3. I'm staying positive. I think they have to keep winning series. They know that, and I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, that's why they're not giving Hendo the start here. So, I like the Shota Imanaga versus Ben Lively. Jamison Tyon's kind of been, up and down lately. That one has me a little nervous. I'm still going to go 2 or 3, but we got to get more out of Assad and we got to get more out of Jamison Tyon. I don't know. I don't think Ben Brown is going to come save the day. I don't think Jordan Wicks is going to come save the day. These are the guys. These are the horses that the Cubs need to kind of help them. They got to do more than going 4 or 5 innings and got to kind of keep the ball in the ballpark.
That's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, we're on Twitter. You can also email us, flythew670gmail.com. And you can watch us. That's right. We've told you a couple times by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I know it's the end of your summer break, and we'll get back at it Wednesday or Thursday.
Yep, I will be going to Green Day concert on Tuesday night at Wrigley Field. Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, and Rancid, so that's going to be a good one. I'm hoping everybody has a good time if you're going out to the site of the Cubs Game 7 triumph in Cleveland. And hopefully, like you said, 2 out of 3. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!